Hello and welcome back to another episode of Just Gay Stuff Podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Jess.
Woo.
We are in the pod room. It's late.
It is late, so we're a bit delirious.
Delirious is an understatement.
Oh, okay. We're going there. Before we get into this week's episode, I just want to jump in. We're a bit late to the party. We've just started watching.
We're always late to the party, but let's talk about Queer Ultimatum.
We're watching season 2 of Queer Ultimatum.
We haven't even finished the first episode and there are some red flags.
Didn't we finish it?
No, we didn't finish it.
I thought we finished at least the first one.
No, fell asleep.
That's because we finished Rizzoli and Isles.
We finally finished Rizzoli and Isles. Look, anyone who has not watched that show and wants to be queer baited until like the end of time, you need to watch it.
It's so maddening that we're like, where's the fanfic?
It's so frustrating. Like, how can you put two characters together that have so much sexual and romantic chemistry and do nothing with them? It's
to the
so
point that even we were watching the bloopers and they ignite that thing more by almost kissing.
In the bloopers, they even pretend to go and kiss. And so they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. They're queer baiting.
I know it was a time that wasn't the time we live in now. But they missed a good ship. Yeah. They missed a good ship there.
And in saying that, so then we were like, what are we going to watch?
What are we going to watch?
So we were like, what's the other queer show on that everyone's been talking about lately? And I feel like it's kind of already been done and over. So we're late to the party again. And we were watching
Ultimatum Queer Love
Season 2. And a conversation came up because, you know, obviously the ultimatum is that one person is ready for that final commitment of marriage and the other person isn't. And that's why they've issued that ultimatum.
And then Lauren and I started this discussion about, well,
we have different but then similar ideals because I changed my view once I had said it and we explained it.
Well, it's all about really, why is marriage such a big deal for some people and why is marriage not a big deal for others? Because I am someone who has been indifferent. Like I don't care if I get married and I don't care if I do. It's very like up in the air. It doesn't matter to me.
That's how you felt about kids as well, though.
It's a piece of paper. Yeah, but kids is a bit more solidifying than like a piece of paper essentially. Yeah. And you would really like to get married. I guess it ignited this conversation where Lauren was of the view where she understood why these people wanted to get married and I was on the other side of the fence not understanding why it was such a big deal. And so then I kind of brought up the fact that, you know, throughout this podcast, we talk about a lot of things, especially the heteronorm side of things and the societal pressure and gender being a social construct and the fact that marriage to me is a social construct, you know. We've had these things throughout the years that have been ingrained in us that is the correct thing to do or that is the right thing to do or that's
the measure of success.
The measure of success of, oh, well, I've accomplished this. It's a level of accomplishment. But we only think that because socially that's been drilled into us. So my question to Lauren was, it was kind of the argument that these girls had too, was that if I'm showing up for you every day and that's my commitment to you every day, what is marriage? Like why does a piece of paper matter? Like why does that party matter? So you say your side because that's my side.
I think it was hard for me. I think there was a few girls who had only been dating probably like us in the 2.5 months and that's not something.
And some less.
And that's not where I go, oh yeah, for the marriage. But then there are other people who had been dating
10 years
for 10 years without the marriage. But then I'm also like, if that was something you were struggling with, I think that would have been a conversation at 5 or something like you would have left or gone away from.
My biggest argument is if you're arguing about the fact that you're married or you're not married, the marriage is not your biggest problem.
No, there's other issues involved in that relationship. And that's what we said in the first season of watching Queer Ultimatum. And, you know, we were lucky enough to talk to Xander from the first season as well. But we were thinking like what else is actually wrong in the relationship that then it's led to this. For me, I changed my views a little bit after hearing your side.
Talking about it being a social construct.
The only argument that I had was I can understand where some people would get married in terms of being rebellious or being like, we're queer, we can also get married too and have that state of things. But I think for you and I, we often say that we're already married anyways.
Well, essentially. And my biggest problem is, you know, you're sitting with someone who's saying, why won't you marry me? But you're either showing up for each other to not need marriage or you're not enough for each other to need marriage. Do you know what I mean? Like there's got to be this give and take. And so that's where I come from in the sense of well, if you're arguing this much about being married or not being married, then marriage is not your issue.
Yeah, I think for me it was also in trying to understand, and I guess it's more research going through it, was understanding like legality side of things in terms of will or in terms of something else, to have those spousal privileges. But then you were explaining to me that once you're in a relationship for a certain period of time.
Yeah, well, in Australia, if you're in a de facto relationship for more than 6 months, you essentially are already entitled to half of that person's share.
Yeah, exactly.
So it really is just a thing. Like at the end of the day, in my eyes, it really is just a party that you can have where everyone around you just celebrates your relationship, which, yeah, that's great. But for me, do I need it? Like, do I personally need to get married to show up for Lauren every day and to show my commitment to Lauren every day? I definitely don't think so. If it's something that Lauren wants, well, then, yeah, we'll do it.
That's a discussion we have.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. I think it really just comes down to the person. And
I don't think I would ever offer you an ultimatum and be
I would never offer you an ultimatum.
And be like, oh, you got to marry me or I'm out. That's what I don't understand. I'm like, how can these girls be like, oh, I'm ready to walk away if you don't marry me? Like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, if that's a problem, you've got bigger problems than the marriage.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's roll on for this week's episode, because this kind of feeds into what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it kind of feeds into what we're going to talk about. You know, you've mentioned there's bigger issues within said relationship if not being married is the problem. And often in lesbian relationships, you would have heard maybe the term lesbian bed death.
I think a lot of us would have heard this term, whether it's a joke or whether you've seriously looked into it. But lesbian bed death is something that can happen to a lot of loving women couples.
Yeah. So over the past few episodes, you know, we've talked about the evolution of queer language, stereotypes, and plenty in between. But the main thing that's been coming up in conversation and that people are curious about is the topic of lesbian bed death. So, Jess, in your own words, what does lesbian bed death mean to you?
So I've seen a bunch of articles. Lesbian bed death has been described as when two women get together, they essentially do not remain individual. They tend to merge their personalities, their personas into one person. That's why we fall so quickly and we become like this one spirited soul, and our first dates last for 10 years.
I'm like, well, our second date did.
And the problem with that is it creates this thing called lesbian bed death, where you become so comfortable with that person that you're no longer sexually ignited by that person. The argument is that you just merge into one and you're no longer two separate entities that find each other attractive, or you just fall into this monotony, which, let me say, obviously, we know a lot of our straight counterparts have the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. There's all this fear that once you get married, sex leaves a marriage. So lesbian bed death is one of those things that hangs over our lesbian relationships. And I guess we're going to talk about today whether it is actually a true thing or if it's not.
I think, like what you said, as we were just talking about queer ultimatum and marriage and stuff, I wonder if then a lot of these couples do possibly suffer from lesbian bed death and that intimacy side of things, and they think that suddenly marriage is going to ignite that flame again.
Mm-hmm. See, I think that probably wouldn't happen.
No, I don't. Well, in your definition, you're kind of pretty close. But according to Google, lesbian bed death is a term used to describe the stereotype that lesbian couples in long-term relationships experience a steep drop in sexual activity over time, more so than straight couples or gay males.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I believe that.
Yeah.
But see, this is why we're here. This is why we're talking about it. Exactly. And I suppose this is all going to be a speculation episode, because unless you're openly talking about your sexual activity, we're never going to really know correct statistics about this.
And neither one of you or I are a therapist, so
no, let's put that out there straight away. We are not qualified to talk about any
scientific reasons behind or anything. We're simply stating observances or things that we have researched.
Merely speculating and giving our own experiences with this.
So the idea is that emotional intimacy stays strong, but sexual intimacy supposedly fades away completely. But where did that idea even come from?
Yeah, see, this is where I'd like to know, because we get told a lot of things throughout our lives and they all stem from somewhere. So Lauren, let's hear where the term lesbian bed death started.
Well, it actually traces back to the late 1970s and early 80s when sociologists Pepper Schwartz and Philip Bloomstein conducted a huge study of over 12,000 couples in the US. Their findings were published in 1983 in American Couples Money, Work, Sex. They found that, on average, lesbian couples reported less frequent sex than other groups, especially as relationships matured. Here's the kicker, though. Schwartz never actually called it lesbian bed death. She was simply reporting a statistic, not claiming that all lesbian couples stop having sex, and definitely not saying sex vanishes completely. See, I didn't know that. That was really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's like Chinese whispers, how it changes.
Yeah, of course. The phrase came later thanks to queer community chatter and media sensationalism in the late 80s and 90s, and it caught on. It turned into a kind of cultural meme, a catchy but oversimplified stereotype that ignored all the nuance, like the limits of self-reported data, like you said, you're not openly putting your statistics out there.
Unless we're openly talking about all of our sexual activity and how often we're sleeping with each other and all of those kinds of things, you're never going to have a clear definition of who is experiencing lesbian bed death and who is not.
How sex can mean different things to different couples.
That is also a very important topic because we talk about sexual intimacy on so many different levels and what some people consider to be intimacy versus what others consider to be intimacy.
When I was doing research on this particular topic, in their study, even though, yes, they saw that the rate was lower for lesbians, the problem was that they were only focusing on penetrational sex.
This is what I was going to say because a lot of our straight counterparts say that if it's not penetration, it's not real sex. And we know
that's not the truth.
Is not the truth. It comes down to what do you consider sexual intercourse and what do you consider sexual intimacy?
Yeah,
so it
varies
couple to couple because we all experience things differently in our lives.
And I think that was their number one flaw in the survey or in their study, where they only counted the penetration and they didn't count other forms of sexual intimacy.
And as we know from being in lesbian relationships, that a lot of like our orgasms happen from not penetration.
No, it's stimulation in other areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the impact of sexism, homophobia, and invisibility of queer women's sexuality.
Which kind of feeds into exactly what I just said. The fact that a lot of our straight couples don't believe in sex that isn't penetration.
I think because a lot of straight couples would consider, I can't speak for anyone, but what the straight couples would deem it as foreplay, but what lesbian couples deem as sex and sexual intimacy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that made sense in my head.
No, it did. And I think that's the thing. Sexual intimacy is sexual intimacy no matter which way you look at it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Over time, the term's been critiqued, reclaimed, joked about, and rejected entirely. Some couples use it as a tongue-in-cheek, others see it as harmful. So yes, it's a stereotype, but it's also sparked real conversations about why sexual connection can drop off for some couples, and that's where I want to go to next. So why do you think this can happen?
Well, I think it is true what they say, how, especially for lesbians, and I mean, that's what we're talking about here because it is lesbian bed death. I think especially for women who are dating other women, we do spark these emotional connections very quickly. And I think that's because, you know, when you are, and I'm just speaking on my experience, when you are searching for that emotional connection that you haven't found with somebody else, things do happen very quickly.
They do, yeah.
And then sexual intimacy happens a lot for the first period of
it's
time.
Like that honeymoon.
Yeah, totally. Oh, you know, you're still exploring each other and you're finding out what you like and it's all those really exciting new things about a relationship.
Yeah, it's the teasing part.
And I think everybody experiences that. But I think when you're experiencing that on an emotional and sexual level, which I think, I'm not speaking on behalf of every lesbian, but I'm saying for me, I believe that's why we fall so quickly for women, is because we have that instant emotional connection as well as sexual connection. It is true what they say, how we start to like...
You get comfortable.
Yeah. I wouldn't say merge into each other. I think, yes, that can happen because I've seen couples that suddenly start to dress the same and they have the same haircut. And they have the same, all these things. But I think that depends on the couple. But I think it is very easy for us to lose ourselves in that comfort, that comfortability. And, you know, sometimes that's a great thing and other times that can really suck the spark or the romance out of something.
Yeah. I do agree with you. I in a lot of ways, I think it's what you said. If you find that emotional connection with someone, and, you know, I can't speak for everyone either, but I think in terms of women, we often are attracted to that emotional intelligence before having that sexual flame. And again, like you said, it's all exciting and new in the beginning. So of course the sexual rampage is there because it's that exploration of not only yourself, but of each other. And then once you get sort of into a routine and a phase, I think the number one thing that we've probably spoken about before in terms of dating, but not like the sexual intimacy side of things, it gets to a point where, you know, you have to actively make that choice to date each other, to be sexually intimate with each other.
Continuously date each other.
Continuously have that little flow and little spark because, you know, life happens. Adulting happens. Like,
I also think there's a difference in lesbian relationships versus straight relationships in the sense of that sex has always been something that has been pinned as one of the very important things for our male counterparts.
Yeah.
Our straight male counterparts especially. It's one of those things that if there's no sex in your relationship, then there's no love either. And I think the difference between that thought process and a lesbian relationship is because we have such a high emotional connection. Maybe we don't feel like we have to always be so sexually active to show that we love each other.
I think it's also because we as women understand that intimacy is in different forms, whereas,
maybe our straight male
counterparts don't think that way.
But
I can't say that. I don't know. I'm not a male.
But that's just how we perceive emotions and how we perceive emotional connection. So what I'm saying is maybe it happens in the case of we don't need to sleep with each other to know that we love each other or to show affection. No. But I do know that some people feel affection purely from sexual intimacy.
Yeah, of course. Well, you know, everybody wants to feel wanted. So there are times that, you know,
but there are other ways that you can feel wanted.
Exactly.
But maybe that just doesn't work for some people.
Exactly. Well, what we just said, you're pretty on the money, but in doing the research, experts usually point to 4 big factors. So the first one, U-Haul culture and intensity.
Well, we know all about that.
So it's like, you know the joke, what does a lesbian bring to a second date?
A U-Haul.
Moving in quickly can create...
Well, actually, can I just say... Us in Australia, we use a Bunnings ute. It's not a U-Haul. We don't have U-Haul in Australia.
We use a trailer. Moving in quickly can create an emotional high early on, like we said, but can also fast track domesticity.
Which is true. Yeah. It's very true.
When a new relationship energy instantly merges with settled life, you skip the long playful seduction stage.
It is true. When you first meet someone and you have to spend time away from them, like you're forced to spend time away from them, it does keep that energy going because you're longing to see them. And you, like, I remember when we first met and we saw each other on the Sunday, then we saw each other again on the Monday, and then you had to go to Sydney for work.
Yeah, for work. I was like, bye.
And
you're like, oh no.
That was really hard to feel all these intense emotions and then have to get through that and not feel it.
Yeah. But then I've been stuck with you ever since. So it's all right.
Yeah.
I didn't even preface before, but a lot of these notes have actually come from therapists and doctors who have researched this topic.
Yeah.
So therapist Dr. Lauren Costine calls it premature familiarity. Emotional safety is great, but it can make erotic energy harder to maintain.
Yeah.
Again, that's what we said. It's just about communication and constantly dating your partner.
Mm-hmm. The choices that you make to continue to show up.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we can get lazy.
Yeah.
Is that not like the easiest thing to do?
You do. You become settled. So sometimes you can fall into that roommate platonic situation. I think especially for women, you forget that you're like, oh, yeah, we're just here doing our lives. But you're like, oh, hang on.
Yeah.
All right, the next one is societal pressures and internalized shame. Many queer women grow up without examples of healthy women-loving women intimacy.
It's so true. How many times have we seen it on TV or even in porn? Like, it's so over-sexualized. And how many times have you watched lesbian porn?
So many.
And I haven't even asked the question
yet. The question. Whoops, my bad.
How many times have you watched lesbian porn and thought, this is not for me?
Yeah.
Because you know that it was not produced for a woman to watch it.
Yeah.
It was produced for a man to watch it.
Although when we watched Hunting Wives, that was pretty women.
It was also produced by a woman.
Yeah, it was very, it was done well.
What we find sexually arousing versus what men find sexually arousing is insanely different.
Yeah,
and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, especially when they're looking at representation in movies and TV. They're writing for the wider audience as opposed to the audience that they know should understand it.
Yeah. The next thing is years of shame or feeling wrong about your desires can stick in the body, making arousal harder over time.
Can't say I've ever experienced that, but I can understand it.
No, neither. But I think we've been very privileged in
Oh, definitely.
The places that
our
upbringing and our acceptance from our parents. Yeah.
Yep.
Some couples prioritize emotional repair once they finally feel safe, unintentionally sidelining sexual exploration.
I could agree with that. It's like keeping your emotional lines more open than your sexual lines open. And that's pretty much because you want to make sure that your person is always, you're putting their best interest first.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're always making sure that they're happy. But that doesn't always just come from the emotional side.
No. So number 3, emotional merging. You kind of touched on this before.
Yeah, that you merge into one person.
Dr. Emily Nagoski in Come As You Are says erotic desire needs at least a little novelty or mystery. When you share everything, your partner can start to feel like an extension of yourself, not a separate, intriguing person. The relationship becomes more about the companionship than eroticism.
I see that.
Yeah.
I see that when you literally know everything about each other and there's no...
Again, I think that comes back to the, you both have to want to try and create that mystery and intrigue and role play. And
I don't think knowing everything about your partner is a bad thing.
No.
I think when does it become an extension of yourself when you think that...
I think it's when you've lost yourself within them as well, and like you said, start to dress like them and not have your own personality and not have your own hobbies. Like, we're very different people, but we get along.
And see, I think the difference is as well, I'm just throwing some spaghetti against the wall here. I also think we see lesbian bed death a lot in couples that seem to exclude their friends from that relationship then and from their lives.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Because when you're focusing all of your energy in one space, you're going to reach that dead end of that space.
And then it becomes a resentment.
Quicker. If you put it this way, say you're walking in a grocery store and you're spending the next 7 days of your life in that grocery store and never leaving.
Oh, God, terrifying.
You are going to know where everything is, in what aisle, everything.
Yeah, I understand that analogy.
If you keep leaving and coming back,
things change.
Things are going to still be, I don't know where that is.
Yeah.
I don't, so you need to keep leaving your relationship for your regular life and come back to it for it to still maintain its mystery.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is essentially,
I think that's important.
Keeping your friendships.
That's
and
important
going out
in
and
a relationship, anyways. Like, I don't think a relationship should just be all in all this one person all the time.
No, definitely.
I'd be like, I've had enough.
Yeah, definitely not.
Well, the final one is the obvious: stress and mental health. Queer women experience higher rates of chronic stress from discrimination and societal invisibility, which psychologically lowers libido.
I don't think that would just be for women though.
No, I don't think it would just be
for
women.
queer
I think
people,
that's for everyone.
But I think for queer people,
yeah.
When you're not being represented as a whole, a lot of the time you're going to feel invisible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Mental health struggles like depression, anxiety, or PTSD can also impact desire.
Yeah.
And let's be real, after a stressful day, sex can feel like one more task instead of something exciting.
Definitely. I've been there before.
Yeah, me too. So that's the theory. But I wanted to hear the reality, which Jess doesn't know this, but I asked our listeners to share some of their own experiences.
Did you?
I did.
Oh, wow.
And I'm about to throw her in the deep end. And even though she's not a therapist,
I'm definitely not a therapist. But I love giving my opinion when it's asked for, Lauren.
I'd love to see what her advice is on these ones.
See if therapist hat.
Yeah, put a therapist hat on and I'll see what advice she's going to offer to these people.
Please don't take my advice when it's not therapeutic.
And also, these are anonymous because it's about lesbian bed death and all of that.
We're not always going to be so open about our personal experiences.
No, exactly. And I understand that. But I am thankful for those who did write in and share their stories.
Can't believe you did that. I didn't say anything.
Ready?
Yeah.
For story number 1. My wife and I have always had differing libidos, but there used to be more room to meet in the middle. We fell into a sex routine of sorts that I didn't feel great about, but she's not comfortable talking about sex even after all these years. So that was that. The sex dwindled and dwindled because more and more things would make her not in the mood. Over the summer this year, I decided, fuck it, I'm tired of sex that ultimately doesn't even feel good and leaving me feeling like someone's discarded sex toy. And I stopped initiating, which is one of the many areas in the relationship that feel unfairly one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
We have had sex exactly twice this year, and both times were on special occasions. My preference would be a few times a week. I'm in my early 30s. I still feel quite young. I'm terrified of staring down a sexless future. My wife is hardcore monogamous, and so if I suggest opening up the relationship, it could very well blow things up. I feel really stuck here. I love her. The relationship hasn't been great in the last couple of years, and I'm tired, burnt out, and starting to get resentful too, but she's my wife. She's the woman I am committed to. We used to have so much more in common and so much fun together. She finally started therapy this year, and that seems to be helping her. Still waiting on that to have a trickle-down effect on the relationship, and we'll be starting couples therapy as soon as we find someone in our network. I've been in therapy for the last 2 years. I realize I can't capture it all here, and so it's a lot to ask for, but I'm not allowed to talk about this stuff when with friends who know us, and I'm feeling really alone, and I would really appreciate some advice or words of wisdom.
Well, not being a therapist makes it hard for me to give any advice. So don't take any advice from people who aren't therapists. But my first thought, which is just generalized, it's not even to do with this one person's story, but I think we can love somebody and realize that we might not actually be sexually compatible with that person. And I think this is where a lot of couples struggle. I think you have to be compatible on different levels with somebody. You have to be emotionally compatible. You have to be sexually compatible. You have to be domestically compatible. All of these things that make up life, you have to share with somebody. And we talk about the 50-50 rule, and it's not always 50-50. Sometimes you only have 20% and someone's got to give 80. And sometimes you're giving 80 because they can only give 20. And it's about making up those sides in all these different aspects of life. So my first instinct is, if your wife is happy with your relationship the way it is and is not striving for the intimacy that you desire, maybe you aren't compatible sexually. I think opening up your relationship with someone who is monogamous is not the answer.
No.
I ultimately think maybe you are not the correct people for each other. And sometimes that can be really, really difficult to hear. And it can be really, really difficult to go through when you do love somebody so much. But, you know, at the end of the day, as people, we have to be fulfilled. We have to fill our own cup. Because if we can't fill our own cup, you're not going to fill someone else's. So it is hard to go through, but sometimes we have to sit and look at a situation and go, while I love this person, are we actually correct for each other if we're not giving each other what we want?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the only other thing that I can add there is if your wife or your partner or even yourself, as you said, are both in therapy, if that translates to then taking medication can also often lower your libido as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I think routines can be good for certain things as long as you're both being fulfilled. And in this case, you're saying that you're not fulfilled. I don't really have advice to how to fix it. I think from what you say, you're just not compatible.
Yeah.
And I think that's very common for a lot of people. You know, we fall in love so quickly with people. We're in these whirlwind relationships, especially in lesbian relationships. You know, we get swept off our feet so easy because we finally feel that emotional connection we've been searching for, and that translates to intimacy really quickly sometimes. And then, you know, we're all sexed out and then life happens. Like we explained before, you know, domesticity happens very quickly and we realize that, oh, we've just become roommates. But that's where you have to work on your stuff. And the thing is, if you're working on something that someone else isn't working on with you, it's never going to work 100% for each other.
No, I agree with you. No way to offer advice, but I do agree maybe you're just not compatible with each other.
And I feel like that's going to be the answer to so many problems.
Yeah. All right. Story number 2. My girlfriend and I have been together for about 2.5 years. It took us a while to start having sex as we were both really nervous.
Instantly, I'm like, if it takes a while, you're not compatible.
Yeah. Once we started, though, we were at it constantly for about a year. We don't live together yet, and we both work a lot, so only see each other on the weekends. We used to be having sex as much as possible on those weekends. Even if we had planned to go out, we would try and fit it in, lol. Fair enough.
That's a good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Fast forward to now. We have had sex a lot less. It gradually started to become more sporadic, which I know is totally normal in couples. However, it is getting to the point now where it's months in between and it's really getting to me. For context, our relationship is very healthy. We are strictly monogamous, have explored kink. We are very communicative. We never fight, we just talk everything through. I'm very much attracted to her. I love her face and her personality, and I love her body. I love to watch her while she changes and touch her body. Intimacy in our day-to-day life is still very much there, but it's the sexual intimacy that's bothering me. I miss having sex with her all the time. I think it's my fault. I feel so ugly lately. I've gained weight and I'm also on birth control as I have had really bad periods, and I think that's killed my libido. Sometimes I still masturbate, but not often. I always think about how I'd love to have sex with her, but when it actually comes to it, I feel a block as such. The last time we tried was this weekend. She initiated it, which I really like, but I started to get a stomach ache. I have stomach problems. I had to stop and I kept apologizing to her. I just felt so guilty and bad about it. I started crying and had a breakdown over it to her. I told her I'm worried that we don't have sex much anymore and that I think it's because I just feel so gross and ugly. She understood and was very supportive and said she thinks I'm putting too much pressure on myself, but I don't know what to do to actually fix it. I'm really scared of lesbian bed death. I heard it's a myth based around homophobia, but I also hear people say it does happen. I don't want it to happen to us. I love our sex life so much and I love her so much. I think about having sex with her, but when it comes to it, I just never feel in the mood. I don't know what to do and I'm worried it'll get worse. Do you have any advice?
Well, I think the fact that we just talked about medication and the fact that you said you're on medication, I think that could be a very big killer for you. It doesn't sound like you're experiencing lesbian bed death if you still have that like wanting for it and like that intimacy of touching each other when she's changing. You obviously still have that like fire to
the desire.
Yeah, to touch her and be alive and do all those things with her. And if she's initiating as well, like you guys don't seem to have like a problem per se. I have been there before where if you don't enjoy how you feel about yourself, you don't want other people to see you. You don't want other people to touch you. Sometimes when I feel really depressed about like how I look or how I feel, even Lauren telling me that she thinks I'm pretty or she thinks I'm beautiful in that moment makes me feel really gross.
Yeah, you shut down.
And it's like, it's one of those things that I can't explain. It's like if you can't see what that person is seeing in that moment, you feel like you need to push back against it. And I feel that a lot. And I have always had issues with self-image since like I was 12. And I think that it's one of those things where we have to reach this space where we feel really good in our own skin before we can take on how other people feel about us and be able to hear that and agree with them. And that's a really hard thing to agree with how someone else sees us because we are never going to see ourselves in that form or in that light. It's the same as we are different to every person we meet. Like we are not the same person. Not everybody has the same experience of us. And so the fact that you're going through some health issues, especially with medication and you've got stomach issues and things like that, I think that probably alludes to a lot of how you're feeling. And until those things get resolved, you're probably not going to feel 100%. But I don't think, straight off what you were saying, you're experiencing lesbian bed death if you still want each other the same amount. I think lesbian bed death rears its ugly head when you're not even thinking about that because you've fallen into this monotony of everyday life.
I agree with you. I think it's not a lesbian bed death issue. I think it's, like you said, as we mentioned, medication. Openly being really raw and vulnerable right now, I have been through many therapists and many different types of medications and stuff. And I know that quite a lot of them can really lower your libido. They can really make you gain weight and feel ugly and not confident in oneself. They can just make you not want to go there or have these weird thoughts and feelings. So yeah, I definitely think it's more of a understanding where you're coming from and the fact that your partner is very open to being supportive about how you're feeling. And I get it. You know, I would also feel sad and upset because then you'd feel like you're rejecting your partner from making that initiation, because I've been on both sides of the coin. I can understand that. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that's a lesbian bed death situation.
I think the only advice I have for this situation is explore your intimacy in a different way. Like, is there another way that you can still have the intimacy that might not be what you would regularly do? Because sometimes we are tired and we're not going to put 100% in, but maybe we still feel like, you know, we are in the mood. Or if we're not in the mood for something that seems like such a big thing, can you do something smaller that still makes you both feel good?
Yeah.
That's my advice.
I think that's pretty good advice. Story number 3. I'm in need of some advice and perspective on my current relationship situation. My wife and I have been together for 4 years and married for 2. I'm going to be as detailed as possible to give you a clear picture of what's going on. When we first got together, our relationship was incredibly passionate and physical. We had an intense sexual connection, exploring every aspect of intimacy within the first 6 months. Looking back, I realize I might have been putting on a bit of a performance, trying to impress her and match her energy. Despite this, we genuinely had a lot of fun, and it helped us bond and get to know each other on a deeper level. Fast forward to now, and things have changed dramatically. It's been about 6 months since we've had sex, at least in the way my wife would prefer. She may have touched me once or twice during this period. I'm usually the bottom in our encounters, but we haven't used the strap on in at least half a year. This lack of intimacy is clearly affecting her, and she's expressed her unhappiness about the situation. I apologize if this is getting a bit graphic, but I want to be as honest and clear as possible. In the early stages of our relationship, I would get incredibly aroused by her presence. I was always ready and eager for intimacy. However, in the last couple of months, I've noticed a significant change in my body's responses. I can't seem to get physically aroused anymore, even when I want to. It's frustrating and confusing because I'm still very much attracted to her and can fantasize about her. We've been trying to understand why this is happening. Are we just making excuses? We often find ourselves exhausted from work, stressed about our financial situation, or just overwhelmed by life in general. It seems like there's always something getting in the way of us being intimate. Recently, something happened that has added to my confusion and guilt. I went on a short vacation with a friend whom I'm physically attracted to. I'm bi. Nothing explicitly sexual happened between us, but we ended up having to share a bed one night. We spooned, and to my surprise and shock, I found myself getting very aroused by his proximity. This reaction has left me feeling incredibly guilty, especially considering my lack of physical response to my wife lately. I've been trying to analyze why my body reacted so strongly in that situation. Was it because I was relaxed away from the stresses of home? Or is it something more concerning about my relationship? Even if it was just a relaxed environment, I still feel guilty knowing it was someone else who triggered that response. My sexual desires have been all over the place lately. When my wife is in the mood, I'm not, and vice versa. On the rare occasions when we do try to be intimate, my body doesn't respond the way it used to. I'm dry and unresponsive, which is frustrating and embarrassing for both of us. I've also found myself fantasizing about other people and scenarios. I've been thinking about threesomes and other new experiences we haven't tried. Part of me wonders if these fantasies are a result of our current situation. Are we just not horny at the same time anymore? I tried to initiate something the other night by sending my wife a message while she was at work, asking her to come home early because I was feeling aroused. She simply replied that she wasn't in the mood for anything to happen that night, which left me feeling rejected and confused. To add another layer of complexity, I keep comparing this situation to my previous relationship. I was in a serious relationship for 3 years before my current marriage, and we never faced these kinds of intimacy issues. However, we never lived together, which makes me wonder if the current problems are related to the routine of married life and cohabitation. I'm at a loss about what to do. I love my wife deeply and want to maintain a healthy, satisfying relationship with her, but I'm concerned about my lack of physical response to her, my guilt over my reaction to my friend, and the growing distance between us in the bedroom. What do you think?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I think it's harsh to put ourselves in this box that we will never experience arousal from someone outside of our relationship. I think it happens all the time. It's common. It doesn't mean that you don't love your partner, and it doesn't mean you're not aroused by your partner. It just means that it's something different. It's kind of like, have you ever heard that, you become desensitized to porn if you watch it too much?
Yeah.
This is the same thing, I feel. When you do something monotonously all the time, you're probably going to become desensitized to it. It's about what Lauren said earlier, keeping things exciting, showing up in different ways. The problem I'm seeing here is I think that it is a bit of an incompatibility, maybe the fact that you're on different sex schedules, essentially, like when you're feeling in the mood, your wife isn't feeling in the mood, vice versa. Is there something you can do to both feel in the mood? Maybe if you're getting aroused by people external to your relationship, when your wife is feeling in the mood, is there something you could do to possibly put something external into your relationship? I'm not saying a third person, although that is something that you would have to talk about. And, a lot of healthy relationships do this. But maybe something like a lot of couples watch porn together and that becomes that external arousal that helps you get across the line in times where maybe you aren't feeling like you're getting across the line. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah.
And I feel like no one should be ashamed for the things that they feel like they want to do to try and spice things up or to try and get themselves to a place where they feel good about intimacy, they feel good about sex, all of these things. So yeah, I think try and spice things up to things that you haven't done before. It's kind of like my grocery store analogy that I used before. If you're staying in that space 24/7, you're not going to find it exciting. You're going to know where everything is from the inside out. There's no surprise. There's no wonder. There's no mystery. And I'm kind of seeing that's how you explained your previous relationship was you never lived together. So you had significant time away from each other. Maybe the fact that you were on vacation or on holiday and you had some time away and then you felt that arousal by something different in your life, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think communicate that and see where it gets you, because no one in life deserves to feel unfulfilled and unsatisfied. If we're with the wrong people, that's going to happen. There's this saying that has always been in my brain that is, there are so many people out there that should be together and aren't, and there are so many people out there that are together and shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's true. I agree with you. Everything is just about communication, and maybe this is something that you guys can talk about and just be like, hey, what's something we can do together to spice up
your life.
Yeah.
To quote the Spice
Girls. Just quickly, before we end this episode, because I know that was a few stories to get through.
The 3 ending stories were good. I didn't know you were going to throw those in. That was actually quite good.
Well, I had to just kind of sneak them in so you understand. I guess hearing those stories and through the research, it's clear that lesbian bed death isn't one thing.
No, and sometimes it's not even lesbian bed death. I think a lot of it comes down to how much are we showing up for each other? How much are we communicating properly? How much are we acknowledging that we do have issues within ourselves that could lead to issues between each other?
Yeah, exactly. It's a mix of circumstances, emotions, communication issues, and life stresses, which means it's not a death sentence for your sex life. It's a sign to check in.
Yes, totally.
And quickly, I'm just going to say some things that I guess you can kind of do if things feel a little flat in the bedroom.
So we pulled some advice from therapists, sex educators, and real couples who have been through it, and here's what they suggest.
Yeah, so they suggest redefine sex. It's not just penetration or orgasms. It can be massage, mutual masturbation, or lying naked together.
Which is kind of what we said before, mix it up. What is sex to you? And can it be redefined? Can you do it in a bigger way, or can you do it in a smaller way that can fulfill you both on those times where you are feeling tired or you are feeling like you want to be intimate, but you don't have enough energy to go the whole hog, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. Schedule intimacy. It's not unsexy, it's intentional. Dr. Laurie Brotto calls this planned pleasure.
It's also you don't not plan a date.
No, exactly.
You always plan a date. You plan a time. You say
just
we're going to meet
plan a sexy date.
So you plan a sexy date.
Yeah, exactly. Flirt again. Send dirty texts. Make out. Keep dating each other.
That is a key thing. Keep dating each other. We see this all the time where they say, oh, my wife is my girlfriend. My wife is still my girlfriend. Yeah, because you're making the effort to still continue to keep showing up for that person.
Exactly. Which kind of goes full circle in our whole marriage ultimatum situation. Talk about desire. Ask what makes your partner feel sexy and safe without pressure.
Which is just open communication.
And try something new. Toys, role play, erotica, even small changes can reignite things.
Yeah. I think so. It's all outside of that monotony.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got some myths here as well.
All right, I'm going to just do a quick speed round of myths. So myth number 1, lesbians just don't want sex after a while.
Which is untrue.
That is untrue. The truth is desire is complex and varies by couple, and not just the LGBTQIA plus community.
Mm-hmm, true.
Second myth, if you're not having sex, your relationship is broken. Wrong. Truth. Sex is just one part of intimacy.
And we know this from talking about people who are asexual or experience sex differently or relationships differently. we are all on such a giant spectrum, like we've said before. We all fall somewhere, and we have to find those people that align with our wants, desires, values, morals. All of those things are to be taken into consideration when we talk about relationships.
Yeah. And the final myth, which is one we mentioned at the very beginning, this can only happen to lesbians.
No, it can happen to anyone in a long-term relationship because we have to keep showing up for each other.
Exactly. Well, if you want to quickly dive deeper, you can check out Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski, The Lesbian Sex Bible by Diana Cage, and Esther Perel's podcast, Where Should We Begin?
Also, there are queer positive sex shops like Good Vibes, Babeland, and Wildflower Sex. They have great tools for exploring together.
Ooh. So what did we learn today? Lesbian bed death isn't inevitable, and it's not a life sentence. It's just a nudge to reconnect and redefine intimacy in what works for you.
And there's not just one way to do it. There's multiple ways. And sometimes maybe the sad thing is we aren't always compatible with everybody who we first have desire for, which is unfortunate, but sometimes it can be true.
That's true.
So just show up for each other, everyone.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to reach a space of lesbian bed death, then you probably won't.
Yeah. Just keep communicating. It's all about communication and checking in.
Lauren actually has a bunch more stories that we didn't get through in this episode because we are running over time.
Yeah.
So we might have to do a second episode where we talk about other people's sexual experiences and if they are hitting a wall. So we might do that in the next couple of episodes.
Yeah.
And with that,
I guess you better remember to
stay gay, motherfuckers!